When you live in a peaceful, tight-knit neighborhood, especially one controlled by a bossy HOA, you eventually learn that the peace is just an illusion. People smile at you in public, but secretly measure your grass with rulers and file complaints about the color of your mailbox. I had learned to live with it, till the summer that changed everything. I'd lived in my modest but beautiful craftsman-style home for almost 10 years. I'd built it from scratch, choosing every nail, plank, and tile myself. The backyard faced a small lake, and in the evenings, I'd sit out on my deck watching the sunset while sipping coffee. It was my sanctuary, and apparently it was also my neighbor's obsession. Her name was Valerie. The neighborhood called her Queen V, though not as a compliment. She was president of our HOA, a position she treated less like community service and more like royal decree. Valerie had made it her mission to beautify the neighborhood according to her vision. And her vision didn't include my home over the years she'd complained about my fence being too rustic, my garden shed obstructing the lake view, and even my choice of porch light fixtures. I'd ignored her most of the time, only responding when she tried to find me for absurd reasons. Each time, I won mostly because she was operating way outside HOA authority. By June, I was long overdue for a break. I booked a 2-week vacation to Italy with my sister. I arranged for my friend Dave to check on the house, water my plants, and collect the mail. I thought I'd return to my quiet lakeside life, feeling refreshed. Instead, I came home to a nightmare, the shock of my life. Taxi dropped me off at my street. I rolled my suitcase toward where my house should have been, and stopped dead in my tracks. There was no house where my home had stood for a decade, was now a flattened lot. Piles of splintered wood, crushed roof shingles, and broken glass littered the ground. My front steps led to nothing but open sky. The mailbox was still standing, absurdly intact, next to the devastation. I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened, my mind scrambling to make sense of what I was seeing. Had there been a fire? An accident? A tornado? Dave came running from his house next door, his face pale. "Oh, thank God you're here. I've been trying to call you for 3 days. Your neighbor Valerie had it torn down." I yelled so loudly I startled a bird off the broken fence post. She said it was an unsafe structure and an eyesore. Claimed she had HOA approval to demolish it while you were gone. My hands were shaking. It's impossible. The HOA doesn't have that power. Dave grimaced. Yeah. But she hired a contractor, waved some papers around, and they just did it. I tried to stop them, but they said she was acting with the board's authority. The confrontation, I stormed across the street to Valerie's house. She was in her front yard clipping roses as if she hadn't just committed the crime of the century. "Where is my house?" I demanded. She barely looked up. "Oh, that old thing. I had it removed while you were away. You're welcome, by the way. Property values will thank me. You had no right?" I shouted. "I had every right," she replied, smugly pulling a folded piece of paper from her apron. "Unsafe structures are subject to immediate removal under Section 14 of the HOA bylaws." I snatched the paper and scanned it. It wasn't even an official HOA document. It was a printout from some template legal form site. She'd just replaced the header with HOA board resolution in Comic Sans font. "You forged this?" I asked, incredulous. "I reinterpreted the rules," she said with a smirk. "Besides, I've been telling you for years your home ruined the view. This was inevitable." Something in me snapped. "I hope you enjoyed your little power trip because I'm about to make your life very, very miserable." Lawyers, lawsuits, and fallout. The next morning, I sat in my attorney's office with a folder full of photos. Witness statements from Dave and a copy of Valerie's fake resolution. My lawyer, Amanda, took one look at the papers and raised an eyebrow. "This isn't just civil trespass. This is a criminal destruction of property. And since the home was insured and custom built, we're talking hundreds of thousands in damages, plus punitive damages for willful misconduct." She got to work immediately.
Ow.
A lawsuit was filed within 48 hours. We included the HOA as a co-defendant since Valerie claimed she acted on their behalf. That forced the board into a panic. Several members called me privately, insisting they had no knowledge of the demolition. Some even offered to testify against her. Meanwhile, Valerie doubled down. She posted in the neighborhood Facebook group that I was overreacting, and that the community is safer without that eyesore. She even claimed she was the victim, whining that my lawsuit was harassment. Big mistake. Amanda subpoenaed the demolition company. Their foreman testified that Valerie had presented herself as the HOA president true, and claimed the board had voted unanimously to approve the demolition false. He also admitted she'd paid him in cash, and the amount was suspiciously low, suggesting she'd hired a cut-rate crew to avoid permits. Courtroom drama. 6 months later, we were in court. I sat at the plaintiff's table, dressed in a dark suit, while Valerie strutted in wearing a bright pink blazer and an air of confidence she absolutely didn't deserve. The trial lasted 3 days. Amanda dismantled her case piece by piece. Day 1. We proved the HOA bylaws contained no clause allowing home demolition without owner consent or court order. Day 2. The demolition crew testified that no permits were pulled and Valerie had misrepresented her authority. Day 3. Dave and several neighbors testified to seeing Valerie gloating during the demolition, telling people she was finally getting rid of that ugly house. When it was Valerie's turn to testify, she tried to paint me as a negligent, a homeowner who'd abandoned my property. Amanda calmly pulled out my vacation itinerary, dated utility bills, and photos showing the home in perfect condition before I left. Valerie's lies collapsed under the weight of cold, hard evidence. The verdict: the judge didn't mince words. Ms. Valerie, your actions were not only unlawful, but malicious. You abused your position as HOA president, forged documents, and destroyed private property. Court finds in favor of the plaintiff. I was awarded $420,000 in damages for the value of the home and property, $150,000 in punitive damages for malicious intent, full coverage of legal fees. Judge also referred her to the district attorney for potential criminal charges. Valerie's face went from smug to ghost white in a heartbeat. The HOA board voted her out the very next week. She was banned from holding any future board position. Aftermath with the settlement money. I rebuilt my home, bigger and better than before. This time I added a massive fence, security cameras, and a gate at the end of my driveway. Valerie's home went up for sale shortly after the verdict. Rumor had it she had to liquidate assets to pay the judgment. She moved away quietly. No farewell party, no waves goodbye, just gone. The neighborhood, surprisingly, became more peaceful after she left. Without her constant meddling, the HOA started focusing on actual community improvements instead of waging war on homeowners. One evening, as I sat on my new deck overlooking the lake, Dave came over with 2 beers. "You know," he said, raising his bottle, "I think you just saved this neighborhood." I laughed. I didn't save it, just reminded them that the HOA doesn't own us, we own our homes. We clinked bottles, watching the sun dip. Below the waterline, the home was back. Valerie was gone, and for the first time in years, the peace was real.